loser mentality press conference. Like the video, hype the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and subscribe to the channel. That would mean so much to me. Let's start with the white lies part of this, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, I think that exhibition play, preseason play is always, trying to get a lot of different, players out there. I think, some of these have been kind of...
Pay close attention to what just happened there. Stephanie White just claimed that most of the Indiana Fever's injuries last season were completely out of her control. Freak accidents, bad luck, nothing they could have prevented. But when you actually examine the timeline of what happened to Caitlin Clark alone, that statement falls apart completely. Because the evidence tells a very different story about how this coaching staff managed their franchise players' health.
A lot of the injuries that happened last year were really out of our control.
A lot of the injuries that happened last year were really out of our control. Stephanie White lies at it again.
Mo coming in on somebody's foot, kind of out of our control. And so, I think for us, we have the scientific data. We have the pieces in place to make sure that we're doing things and controlling it as much as we can from that aspect. And then you got to go out and play the game. I mean, injuries are a part of the game. All of us have been through it. Most of us have been through it.
She mentions load management data and scientific tracking. The Fever supposedly have all the metrics they need to prevent injuries. But here's the critical question. If you have all that data and you're interpreting it correctly, why did Caitlin Clark suffer 3 separate lower body injuries in her rookie season? Let's walk through the actual timeline, because the pattern reveals something troubling about how this organization operates. Training camp, before the season even started, Clark develops a quad injury significant enough that she misses the first preseason game. The medical staff knows about it. White knows about it. But when the Fever schedule an exhibition game in Iowa against the Brazilian national team, they make a business decision. They need to sell tickets in Clark's home state, so they put her on the court with an injured quad. That's not a freak accident. That's a calculated risk that prioritized revenue over player health.
Really? Caitlin Clark hurting her quad in training camp, being forced to play in Iowa against Brazil, was that in your control or out of your control? Did you put her in the game or did you keep her from playing knowing that her quad was injured? Was that something you control or not control? Okay, because she missed the first preseason game, so you knew something was going on, but you wanted to sell tickets. So you have her play against the Brazilian national team on a bum quad. Nice. The New York Liberty game. Oh, quad issue again. Awesome.
Then comes the New York Liberty game, and suddenly it's quad issues again. Why? Because when you rush a player back before soft tissue injuries fully heal, they compensate with altered movement patterns. That compensation creates new stress points. Basic sports medicine. The injury wasn't out of their control. The decision to play her before she was ready created the conditions for re-injury. But the Seattle Storm game is where this gets indefensible. The Fever are up 7 points with 40 seconds remaining. The game is decided, and Stephanie White puts Caitlin Clark back on the floor. 40 seconds left in a game they've already won. Clark goes down with a groin injury. Now, was that in your control or out of your control? Because the decision to insert your franchise player into garbage time of a one game, that's coaching malpractice.
Was that something that you could control or not control? Stephanie White lies. You rush her back from that injury. She hurts it even worse against the Connecticut Sun because you brought her back too soon, because all of your data and all of your measurements and all of your... Oh, you can't utilize that stuff properly? You can't interpret it correctly? Was that something that you could control or not control? Stephanie White lies.
And predictably, they rush her back from the groin injury too. She aggravates it worse against the Connecticut Sun because the tissue never fully recovered. This isn't bad luck. This is a pattern of poor decision-making disguised as unavoidable circumstances. When White claims they have load management protocols and scientific data, the question isn't whether they have the information. It's whether they're actually using it to protect players or just using it as cover when injuries happen anyway. Then there's Kelsey Mitchell's situation against the Las Vegas Aces. Cramping severe enough to take her out of a crucial game. White talks about having all the data, all the measurements. But proper hydration protocols, electrolyte balance, nutritional timing, these aren't complicated. If your second best player is cramping in a playoff critical game, your preventative measures failed. That's not a freak occurrence. That's inadequate preparation.
You stated that the standard is championships.
You stated that the standard is championships. Now watch Steph White smile in absolute nervousness, look at Aaliyah Boston, and try to run from the standard that she set herself.
How are you specifically preparing this group to transition from playoff contender to a title favorite heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the standard is to position ourselves for a championship. Like, you know, winning a championship is hard.
The standard is to position ourselves for a championship. Winning a championship is hard. What do you think Becky Hammond's standard is? To position ourselves for a championship? No, it's to fucking win a championship.
But the injury management is only half the problem. Because what's even more revealing is how Stephanie White talks about championships. Watch this carefully. She set the standard herself at the beginning of the season. Championships. That's the goal. That's what she told everyone. But now listen to how quickly she walks that back when pressed on it. The standard is to position ourselves for a championship, not to win a championship. To position ourselves, that's loser language. That's building in the excuse before the season even starts. Becky Hammond doesn't say the standard is to position the Las Vegas Aces for a championship. She says the standard is to win, period. That's the difference between a championship mentality and what White is selling here. And notice the excuses she's already stacking up: peaking at the right time, being healthy, getting the right matchups, all these variables that have to align perfectly. She's telling you right now, in the preseason, why they might not win. Compare that to how actual championship coaches talk. They don't focus on all the things that have to go right. They focus on controlling what they can control and executing regardless of circumstances.
Winning a championship is hard. You know, I think for this group,
especially in a series, winning a championship is hard. Excuse after excuse. Everybody has to be playing at the right time, and excuse and excuse and excuse. Just setting up for losing. Just setting herself up to lose.
and I said it at the beginning of last year, there's no substitute for experience. And taking that next step, and
That's why they get all these old players with championship experience, because there's no substitution for experience.
experiencing what it means to be in the semifinals, going through a season that had a lot of ups and downs, and experiencing the various aspects.
That whole entire team's gone. So the whole entire team that went through ups and downs, most of them are gone.
Then she mentions experience. There's no substitute for experience, she says. They needed to go through last season's ups and downs to learn what it takes. Except most of the players who went through those experiences are gone now. The roster turned over significantly. So what exactly did that experience teach the organization if they didn't retain the players who gained it? And here's what really exposes the mentality problem. She talks about having the right mindset every day, choosing to get better, not being denied, all the right words. But words are cheap. What matters is behavior. And her behavior suggests basketball is a job she clocks in and out of, not an obsession. While other coaches are grinding film in the offseason, White was doing broadcasting work for ESPN. That's her choice. But don't tell me you have a championship mentality when you're prioritizing side gigs during the time other coaches are studying opponents.
Open door policy.
Yeah.
Any new things that you'd like to implement as a coaching team that continues to promote that vulnerability between you and the coach?
I think the biggest thing is just be who we are. You know, this is not something that is structured or sketched out, or this is just who we are. And especially with like Bree and Rima and I, we've played in this league. Like, we understand, and we've played for a lot of coaches. I coach the way that I would have wanted to be coached, and I think Bree and Rima do very similar things. We've been through the ups and downs, and we also understand that there's a human element to everything that we do. And yes, we want to win. Yes, we're going to push each other to be the best that we can be. The players are going to challenge us to be the best that we can be. But at the end of the day, we're all humans who love this game, who love to be around each other, who value shared experience. And when I think back on my career, it's not always about winning the championships. And
Then what the fuck is it about?
And then comes the most damning statement of all. When she reflects on her playing career, she says it's not always about winning championships. Let that sink in. The head coach of a team with championship aspirations just said winning championships isn't what it's all about. She values shared experiences and the human element. That's beautiful for a recreational league. But for a professional organization paying players millions of dollars and asking fans to invest emotionally and financially, that's unacceptable. Only losers say it's not about championships. Michael Jordan never said that. Kobe Bryant never said that. Larry Bird never said that. Diana Taurasi never said that. The greats in any sport understand that while relationships and experiences matter, they exist in service of the ultimate goal, which is winning titles. When you start saying it's not always about championships, you've already lost the mental battle. You're giving yourself permission to fall short.
Do you know who it's not about championships for? Losers! This is disgusting. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, hype the video, and subscribe.
This creates a massive problem for the Indiana Fever moving forward, because Caitlin Clark does have a championship mentality. She's proven that at every level. She dragged Iowa to back-to-back national championship games. She elevated the entire sport's visibility through sheer force of will and talent. She's obsessed with winning. And now she's playing for a coach who openly admits it's not always about championships. That's a fundamental philosophical mismatch that's going to create tension. The Fever won their championship last season, in spite of Stephanie White's coaching, not because of it. Clark's individual brilliance and ability to elevate her teammates carried them through. But you can't rely on one player to overcome coaching deficiencies indefinitely. Eventually, the gap between player excellence and coaching mediocrity becomes too wide to bridge. And when that happens, you waste the prime years of a generational talent. Here's what should terrify Fever fans. White is already building the narrative for why they might not win this season. The injuries were unavoidable. Championships are hard. So many things have to go right. Peaking at the right time is difficult. She's constructing the excuse framework before they've played a single meaningful game. That's not preparation. That's preemptive blame shifting. Compare that approach to how Cheryl Reeve operates in Minnesota, or how Becky Hammon runs Las Vegas, or how Sandy Brondello built the New York Liberty. Those coaches don't talk about positioning themselves for championships. They expect championships and build every decision around that expectation. They don't make excuses about injuries because they implement protocols that minimize injury risk in the first place. And when injuries do happen, they don't claim they were unavoidable. They analyze what went wrong and adjust. The load management comment is particularly galling because it reveals organizational incompetence masked as sophistication. Yes, they track data, but tracking data means nothing if you're not acting on it appropriately. Playing Clark on an injured quad in a meaningless exhibition game proves they're not actually using their data to protect players. They're using it to justify decisions they've already made for other reasons, usually financial. And that's the real issue here. The Indiana Fever are operating like a business first, and a championship organization second. They needed Clark to play in Iowa to sell tickets, so they played her injured. They needed her on the court against New York to maintain momentum, so they rushed her back. They kept her in garbage time against Seattle because fans paid to see her play, so they risked her health for customer satisfaction. Those are business decisions, not championship decisions. Stephanie White is the perfect coach for an organization with those priorities. She's not going to push back against the front office when they make business decisions that compromise competitive integrity. She's not going to be the bad guy who sits the star player even when it's the right move medically. She's going to go along with whatever generates revenue and keeps her bosses happy. And she'll use her load management data and her talk about uncontrollable injuries to deflect criticism when it inevitably backfires. But here's the thing about championship windows. They're shorter than you think, especially in a league where player movement is constant and competitive balance can shift rapidly. The Fever have maybe 3 or 4 years of Clark's prime before other factors start affecting her trajectory. They cannot afford to waste those years with coaching that's merely adequate. They need excellence. They need someone who will fight the front office when business decisions conflict with championship decisions. They need someone who actually believes championships are the only thing that matters. Instead, they have someone who admits it's not always about championships. Someone who builds excuses before the season starts. Someone who claims injuries are unavoidable, while making decisions that directly contribute to those injuries. Someone who talks about having a championship mentality, but behaves like someone treating this as a well-paying job, rather than an all-consuming mission. The contrast between Clark's mentality and White's mentality is going to become more apparent as the season progresses. When Clark is frustrated by losses that could have been prevented with better coaching decisions, that frustration will show. When she sees other teams with coaches who are more prepared, more strategic, more obsessed with winning, she's going to wonder why the Fever settled for less. And eventually, that's going to create a decision point. Either White elevates her approach to match Clark's standards, or Clark starts thinking about whether she can win a championship in Indiana at all. That's the real danger of having a coach who doesn't share your franchise player's championship obsession. It's not just that you might not win, it's that your best player starts questioning whether winning is even possible in your organization. And once that doubt creeps in, you're one bad playoff loss away from a trade request or a free agency departure. So when Stephanie White says the injuries were out of their control, and championships aren't what it's all about, and they're just trying to position themselves for success, what she's really saying is this: don't expect excellence, expect excuses. Expect mediocrity dressed up in data analytics language. Expect a coach who's more concerned with managing perceptions than winning titles. The question for Fever fans is whether that's acceptable. Because Caitlin Clark didn't transform women's basketball just to play for a coach with a losing mentality. She didn't break viewership records and sell out arenas just to hear about how championships are hard and injuries are unavoidable. She came to the WNBA to win. And if the Indiana Fever aren't equally committed to that mission, if they're satisfied with positioning themselves rather than actually winning, then they're wasting the most valuable asset in women's basketball. Stephanie White lies about injury prevention. She has a losing mentality about championships. And unless something changes dramatically, the Fever are going to waste Caitlin Clark's prime years, while their coach makes excuses about why they fell short. That's not a prediction. That's what she's already telling us will happen. The only question is whether anyone's actually listening. So here's what I want to know. Do you think Stephanie White can actually lead this team to a championship? Or is Caitlin Clark going to have to drag them there despite the coaching? Because based on everything we just heard, I know which way I'm leaning. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe because we're going to be tracking this situation all season long.